Who is?
And welcome to The Issue Is. I'm Elex Michaelson. Something happened this week that almost never happens. Former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi commended the leadership of the current House Speaker, Kevin McCarthy. She praised this high-stakes meeting. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy welcomes the President of Taiwan, Tsai Ing-wen, to the Regan Library.
I believe our bond is stronger now than at any time or point in my lifetime.
We're stronger when we are together.
Tensions outside the library as pro-Chinese and pro-Taiwanese demonstrators clash. For all the divisions outside, unity inside, with 17 members of the House from both parties, including Republican Michelle Steele from Orange County, Democrat Julia Brownlee from Ventura County, and Redlands' Pete Aguilar, chair of the Democratic Caucus. Why was it important for you to be here today?
It was important for us to have a bipartisan conversation.
Last year, when then House Speaker Nancy Pelosi visited Taiwan, China retaliated with increased military exercises. China threatening once again a, quote, severe confrontation if this meeting happened.
What is your message to China, who's threatening retaliation for doing this today?
Well, my first message to China, there's no need for retaliation. But the one thing I would say to China, too, at no time, I am the Speaker of the House. There's no place that China is going to tell me and where I can go or who I can speak to.
Afterwards, he spoke one-on-one with us. It's an honor to be joined by the Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy, on this incredible California day, right? Isn't this a nice way to show off?
Isn't it beautiful? I mean, this has been an amazing winter. I just wish California would have planned and built more storage so we could capture all this water we're going to get and not send it out to the ocean.
Yeah, okay. That's a whole other discussion. But let's start with the reason that brought you here today. A meeting with the President of Taiwan. What was your big takeaway from that meeting, and what was your main message to her?
Well, we sat down with President Tsai as she transits through America, and we brought a bipartisan group, and I think people should really note that. Republicans and Democrats together, here at the Reagan Library, and I think part of that symbolism is the ideas that Reagan fostered from freedom, democracy, and peace. And I think it's very important that when we look to the future, a lot of people bring hypothetical questions, could China invade Taiwan and others? And as policymakers, we want to make sure that day never happens. So what we talked about is, how do we follow through in our 6 assurances? How do we provide the weapons to Taiwan to deter anybody from having war? How do we build greater economic relationships with one another and help foster that democracy and peace and freedom that Taiwan has?
You know, we saw some protesters outside here today. We know China warning that they may attack because of this in some way. Are you concerned about that at all?
No, and that's really the wrong approach for China to take. What's so unique is we have protesters on both sides of the aisle.
Right.
Could they do that in China? That is how strong America is and how strong our democracy is. Right. I would sit down with President Xi, because the world would be a safer place if we communicate with one another.
And you also sat down with the leader of the Democratic Caucus, who's a fellow Californian as well. You know, there's a lot of folks that'll see this and think, man, they're so nice to each other on this day, and yet they're fighting so much all the rest of the time. Why can't we have more of this? Why can't we have more of that?
Well, you know what's interesting? So we've passed a number of bills in this short amount of time in Congress. 83% of them have all been bipartisan. What's unfortunate at times on television, they emphasize the differences instead of. But I think it's healthy that we have philosophical differences, but we find times to come together. And it's very unique that in this issue and the importance of this, you find us united. And I think this is so important that we were able to create a select committee on China, bipartisan, when I first came on. And I think that has fostered a stronger relationship. And as we learn to work together here, I think we'll learn to work together on other issues too.
Well, yet there are so many other issues that are divisive. I know you don't necessarily really want to talk about this today, but the indictment of President Trump, your reaction to that, and what might happen when it comes to investigating Alvin Bragg.
This is a DA of a borough who ran and campaigned on the idea of taking Soros money that he was going to indict the president. People see it what it is. In America, one of our greatest strengths is the rule of law, but the fairness of that. My fear is what's going to happen here is this is going to spiral. this claim isn't going to go anywhere, right? It can't sustain in a court of law.
We don't know that.
Well, I think you look at court cases, I think you talk to attorneys all the way, the weakness here of trying to take it from election law of a personal thing and try to make it a felony. But what's going to happen is, will this spur some conservative DA in a small county in a red state to go and try to indict Biden after election? That's not America, right? Let's respect one another. Let's apply the rule of law equal to everybody. And if that was the case, this indictment would never come, especially to someone who is running for president and could be the front runner to the party. It's really showing the politics, and it's really not the finest hour here.
Since we're the California Politics Show, the biggest election next year is probably the race for Senate in California. Right now, you've got Adam Schiff, Katie Porter, and Barbara Lee. Do you have a favorite in that race?
None of those are.
Do you think there's going to be a Republican that's going to run? Are you encouraging anybody to run?
Yeah, I think it's healthy that you have ideas on both sides of the aisle. Look at this. I've been leader for 4 years, and Nancy Pelosi got elected Speaker 4 years ago. We have a 5-seat majority. In those 4 years, Nancy Pelosi never won a congressional seat in California. She lost 6 Democrats in that time period. Yeah. So I think California is primed
to get
a
Senate
Republican.
Seats, though.
Well, she was Speaker of the House. She was only. She tried to defeat 7 Republicans in the last election, and she lost. She even gained another. So what I think really happens, especially from a place of California, you want to check and balance. Wouldn't it be nice to have a voice on the other side of the aisle that can be that check and balance? I think there's a number of Republicans that can reflect the views of California, be they fiscal policy, to make our streets safer, to make our energy policy better, to make sure our borders are secure and fentanyl is not coming to kill our children. I think a Republican could win.
And lastly, you obviously worked so hard to get to the job of Speaker of the House.
It wasn't easy. It took me 15 rounds.
It wasn't easy. Now you're there, though. You won. How is it maybe different now that you're actually in the job? What's it like being in the job? And maybe what have you learned about yourself now being in the job?
I feel very fortunate to have this opportunity. Going through 15 rounds, people don't, you don't like going through it, but I think it made me stronger, actually. It made me better prepared. I think the conference is better. You've watched what we transpired since that time. I remember Babe Ruth had this line, you can never beat someone who will never give up. And I hope to California and to the nation, they'll see I'll never give up on them. Would you have thought, sitting and walking through that election, that we'd be here at the Regan Library, Republicans and Democrats together, for the first time as a speaker, sitting down with the President of Taiwan on American soil and having a discussion, because we're forward looking to make sure that we won't have conflict in the future. So, maybe going through that helped us come together.
So it was worth it?
Yes.
All right. Speaker, great to see you. Thank you so much. Really appreciate the time. Our thanks to the Speaker and to photographer James Wolfe. After that meeting, China sanctioned the leaders of the Reagan Library for hosting. They're now essentially banned from travel and limited when it comes to business opportunities in China. Up now.